Lyra sat alone in her father's cold study, the weight of the decision pressing on her like a heavy stone. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the letter that would change her life forever. She had always known her family valued appearances and power more than love or kindness, but she never imagined their cruelty could reach this level. Her father's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the quiet room. "You are to leave for the Dracorian Empire at once," he said. "The Dragon Lord Kaeldar has requested a human as tribute. You will go." Lyra's heart dropped. She had heard of the Dragon Lord. He was a being of terrifying strength, a ruler of 1,000 planets, feared even by the bravest soldiers of humanity. His scales shimmered like molten metal, his wings spanned wider than the largest ships, and his eyes glowed with the fire of distant suns. He had no reason to want her, least of all, a human girl labeled ugly and unwanted by her own people. "Father, why me?" she whispered, though she already knew the answer. Her small frame, her uneven features, the scar that ran across her cheek, all of it had marked her as different. In her family's eyes, she was a failure. She had always been the quiet one, never bold, never beautiful, never strong. She had hoped to hide in the shadows of her siblings, but now there was no hiding. Her father's expression was unreadable, but his tone was cold. "You are a burden. This is the only way to protect our name. You will go as punishment and do not return unless it pleases me." Lyra's stomach turned. She had imagined exile, she had imagined punishment, but she had never imagined being sent to an alien warlord. 1,000 thoughts collided in her mind. How would she survive? What would he do to her? She had no skills, no magic, no weapons. She had only herself, and even that seemed fragile. The journey to the Dracorian Empire was harsher than she had imagined. Humans were allowed on their ships only as passengers, never as equals. She was placed in a small cabin, sparsely furnished, with a window that looked out onto the endless black of space. The stars were beautiful, distant, and cold. Lyra tried to draw comfort from them, but the fear in her chest would not let her. Every moment she imagined the Dragon Lord. She imagined the sharp curve of his horns, the glint of his scales, the fire that could melt steel. She imagined his gaze upon her, judging, mocking, seeing all her flaws at once. She forced herself to sit up straight, to appear brave, but the truth was that her hands shook and her lips were dry. Days passed. The ship's engines hummed like a great beast in her ears, and the emptiness of space felt endless. She spoke to no one, not the crew, not the other passengers. They seemed to treat her as if she were already gone, a ghost on a path she had no choice in walking. She practiced her breathing, tried to steady her heart, tried to remember that survival might be possible even here. When she finally arrived at the Dragon Lord's fortress, it was larger than anything she had ever seen. Towers of dark metal pierced the skies, wings of energy arched over the halls, and the ground beneath her feet vibrated as if the world itself were alive. She was led through vast corridors where the walls pulsed with alien symbols, and she felt herself shrinking with every step. Then she saw him. Kaeldar. The Dragon Lord. His presence filled the room before she could even see him fully. Scales of silver and black shimmered under the strange light. His wings were folded behind him, but even folded they seemed unstoppable. His eyes, bright like twin suns, fixed on her. Lyra froze. She expected anger, disgust, a challenge. But he said nothing at first. He simply stared. And in that moment she felt the weight of every judgment, every insult, every expectation she had ever carried. Finally he spoke. His voice was deep, resonant, not cruel, not mocking, but commanding. "You are the human sent as punishment?" Lyra nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, my lord." Kaeldar tilted his head, studying her. "Interesting," he said finally. Then, without another word, he gestured for her to follow him. She did, though every step felt heavy. She had expected fear, punishment, even death. But for now, all she faced was silence, and that silence held a strange promise, one she could not yet understand. As she looked up at him, a small thought crept into her mind. Perhaps being sent here was not the end. Perhaps it was the beginning of something far larger than she could imagine. She did not know how or why, but something about the way he looked at her made her wonder if there was more to this world than fear and judgment. The human girl, labeled ugly and unwanted, had been sent as a punishment. But in the shadow of the Dragon Lord, for the first time, she felt the tiniest spark of hope. Lyra followed Kaeldar through vast halls that seemed to stretch forever. The walls glowed with strange light, and the floor hummed with a power she could feel in her bones. Despite her fear, she tried to keep her steps steady. Every moment she reminded herself that she had to survive. Kaeldar walked silently beside her. His eyes, like molten gold, never left her face. Lyra expected judgment, disgust, maybe even anger. But he did not speak harsh words. He simply watched, his expression unreadable. Finally they reached a room filled with light and heat. Strange machines and floating screens surrounded them. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like this before. The technology was advanced beyond her imagination, yet it seemed alive, as if it understood the people who touched it. Kaeldar turned to her. "Do not be afraid," he said. His voice was deep but not frightening. "You are not here to be harmed. You are here to observe." Lyra's throat went dry. "Observe?" she asked. "But I am nothing. I have no skills. I am ugly. My father said I was a punishment." Kaeldar's golden eyes softened slightly. "Beauty is not what I value. Strength is not what I demand. Knowledge, curiosity, and courage, these are worth more than all the stars in the galaxy. And you, human, have something I have not yet seen in many years." Lyra blinked. She could not believe what she was hearing. No human had ever said anything like that to her before, let alone a dragon lord. Her chest swelled with a mix of fear and disbelief. Could it be true? Could someone see her as more than her appearance, more than her mistakes? Kaeldar gestured for her to approach one of the floating screens. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. The screen displayed strange symbols and rotating planets, showing movements she could barely understand. "Touch it," he said. "You will see what I see." Lyra hesitated but reached out. The moment her fingers brushed the screen, images and data flowed through her mind. She gasped. She could understand the technology, the patterns, the meanings. Ideas she had never had before began to form. The Dragon Lord's fortress, his fleet, even his strategies, everything was connected. And for the first time, Lyra felt a spark of confidence. "You understand it," Kaeldar said, watching her carefully. "Most humans cannot. But you think differently. You see connections others miss. You notice details others ignore." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never been praised before, never been told she had worth. I just try to pay attention," she said softly. "Attention is a rare gift," Kaeldar said. "Curiosity is even rarer. And courage, true courage, comes when one faces fear and continues anyway. You have all three. That is why you are here. That is why I requested you." Lyra swallowed hard. She wanted to believe him, but a small voice inside whispered that it was impossible. A dragon lord could not care for a human girl, not one that her own people considered ugly and useless. Yet the way he looked at her, calm and steady, made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, he meant it. For the next few days, Lyra learned more than she ever imagined possible. Kaeldar allowed her to study the fortress, to ask questions and even to suggest small improvements. To her surprise, he listened. When she spoke, he considered her ideas seriously, sometimes nodding, sometimes asking more questions. No one on Earth had ever done that. The soldiers and engineers around her began to notice as well. At first they were wary. A human girl? Here. They had expected weakness, tears, or fear. Instead, they saw her calmness, her careful observations, and the little insights she offered. Some of them even began to respect her, quietly, among themselves. Lyra discovered that the Dragon Lord's world was different. Here, the scars and differences that humans mocked were signs of survival and courage. Here, knowledge and kindness could be more valuable than beauty or strength. The realization made her heart swell with something she had never felt before: hope. One night, as she stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing expanse of Kaeldar's fortress, she thought about her family on Earth. They had sent her away thinking she was worthless. But here she was seen. Here she mattered. And the thought that the Dragon Lord, the most powerful being she had ever known, could respect her, even like her, filled her with a quiet wonder. Kaeldar joined her on the balcony, silent at first. The stars stretched endlessly beyond them. Then he spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. "You will change many things here, Lyra. I see it in you. Not because of what you look like, but because of who you are." Lyra shivered, not from the cold, but from the truth in his words. For the first time she felt that she had a place, a purpose, and maybe even a future. She was not just a punishment. She was not just a human discarded by her own people. Here, in the shadow of the Dragon Lord, she was something new, something important. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to hope. Lyra woke early, the light of distant stars spilling into her cabin. The hum of the fortress and the faint warmth of Kaeldar's world greeted her like an old friend. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere, even if it was far from Earth and everything she had known. Kale summoned her to the main hall, a place filled with floating platforms, glowing symbols and the soft murmur of engineers and soldiers. He moved with ease, wings folded behind him, scales shimmering under the alien light. Lyra followed quietly, her curiosity stronger than her fear. Today, Kale said, you will see the work we do here. You will learn and you will teach if you can. Lyra's heart beat fast. She had never been called a teacher before. On Earth she had been invisible, ignored and dismissed. Here Kale was asking her to share her thoughts with those who ruled the stars. The first few hours were overwhelming. Lyra studied strange machines that mined energy from stars, floating charts that tracked thousands of ships across the galaxy, and weapon systems so powerful that entire planets could fall if used. At first she was afraid to speak, afraid to suggest anything. But Kale watched quietly, giving her a space to think without pressure. Slowly Lyra began to notice patterns. Small inefficiencies, connections that no one else had seen. She suggested minor adjustments to the energy flow, ways to optimize the fleet's patrol routes. To her amazement, the engineers listened. They asked questions. They tested her ideas. You have a mind unlike any human I have known, Kale said, his deep voice echoing through the hall. You see the unseen. You understand the overlooked. That is your gift. Lyra felt her cheeks warm. For the first time, her mind, not her appearance, was being recognized. She had always been told she was ugly, useless, or weak. Now her thoughts mattered. She began to realize that she was capable of more than survival. She could contribute, even shape the world around her. Days passed. Lyra worked alongside the Dragon engineers, learning the language of their machines, the logic of their strategies, and the rhythm of their lives. She made small improvements that even Kale acknowledged. Soldiers began to approach her with questions, and she answered them with quiet confidence. They respected her not because she was human, but because she was clever, observant, and brave enough to speak. One afternoon, Kale called her to the central observation deck, where the galaxy unfolded like a living map. You have learned quickly, he said. But there is more. You will help me plan peace. Lyra blinked. Peace? She asked. Humans on Earth had always believed dragons were merciless, that they only knew war. But Kale was asking her to help prevent it. Yes, he said. You understand humans. You know our ways now too. You may be the bridge between worlds. Lyra's mind raced. She remembered her father, who had sent her away as a punishment. She remembered the fear, the shame, the belief that she was worthless. But here she was needed. Here she mattered. And for the first time she believed that she could do something extraordinary. Over the next weeks, Lyra worked tirelessly. She studied Dracorian diplomacy, human politics, and the fragile balance of interstellar alliances. She suggested peaceful solutions to potential conflicts, negotiated minor agreements with visiting diplomats, and used logic and empathy to calm tensions. The Dragon Lord observed her, sometimes with a thoughtful tilt of his head, sometimes with a rare smile. Lyra noticed something about Kale. He did not see her as weak, ugly, or small. He saw potential, intelligence, and courage. Slowly she began to trust him, not just as a teacher or a ruler, but as someone who valued her for who she truly was. The soldiers and engineers, who had once doubted a human girl could do anything of importance, now sought her advice. They respected her judgment, her clarity, and her calm in moments of uncertainty. Lyra, once afraid and timid, began to feel a sense of pride she had never known. One evening she and Kale stood on the balcony, overlooking the glowing expanse of the fortress. Ships moved like tiny fireflies across the void, and the stars reflected in Kale's golden eyes. You have changed more than you realize, he said. You have made this place better, not through strength or beauty, but through wisdom and heart. That is a rare gift, even among dragons. Lyra's chest tightened. I never imagined anyone could see me like that, she admitted. Kale's gaze softened. Many fail to see what is truly valuable. Not you. You have opened your mind, and in doing so, you have opened doors for others as well. That is why I value you. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. For the first time she felt proud of herself, not for looks, not for charm, not for survival, but for who she was inside. She realized that the Dragon Lord, the most powerful being in the galaxy, had given her something she had never received from her own world: belief. And so, the human girl once sent as a punishment began to find her purpose. She was not just surviving. She was contributing. She was learning, teaching, and shaping the galaxy in ways she could never have imagined. For Lyra, the fortress no longer felt like a prison. It felt like home. And as she looked up at Kaeldar, she realized that perhaps being sent here was not a curse at all, but the beginning of something far greater than she had ever dreamed. The calm of the fortress was shattered one morning by an urgent alarm. Lyra was in the observation hall when the warning lights flashed red, and the hum of the ship's engines deepened with tension. Soldiers rushed past her, their wings fluttering and claws clanging against metal floors. Something was coming, something dangerous. Kaeldar appeared beside her, his golden eyes narrowed. "A rival faction," he said. "They seek to take you from us. They know your importance. They will not stop for negotiation." Lyra's heart sank. She had known that not everyone would accept a human in Kaeldar's world, but she had never imagined it would come to this. She remembered the fear and shame of her family, the whispers that called her ugly and useless. And now, this threat made her realize that some beings across the stars saw her the same way. "They want to experiment on me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kaeldar's gaze was sharp. "Yes. They do not see value in you as a person. Only as an object. But you are not theirs to take." Lyra swallowed hard. Fear rose in her chest, but beneath it, determination began to burn. She had learned much since arriving in the fortress. She had learned about the Dracorian technology, about diplomacy, about strategy. And she had learned about herself. She was not weak. She was not useless. She could act even in the face of danger. Kaeldar's wings unfurled, casting shadows across the hall. "I will not allow them to harm you. But you, human, may help us prevent a war." Lyra nodded. She felt a strange mixture of fear and courage. She realized that she had something no one else did, the ability to see both sides, the human and the Dracorian. Perhaps she could prevent bloodshed, not through fighting but through understanding. She gathered the council of generals, engineers, and diplomats. Her voice was steady despite the pounding of her heart. "We cannot meet force with force alone," she said. "If we do, countless lives will be lost. We must speak their language, understand their needs, and show them that taking me will lead to nothing but failure." The generals murmured among themselves. Many doubted a human girl could sway a faction known for aggression and cruelty. Kaeldar remained silent, watching, giving her space to lead. Lyra studied the holographic maps, highlighting trade routes, resource points, and weak spots. "If we offer them a choice, a trade, a partnership, and proof that I am valued here, they may reconsider. Pride will not allow them to attack a fortress unprepared, but they may listen if they see wisdom in negotiation." Hours passed. Lyra worked tirelessly, drafting messages, arranging signals, and preparing defenses while also preparing peaceful proposals. Kaeldar observed quietly, occasionally nodding, sometimes adding insight, but mostly allowing her to take the lead. When the rival faction arrived, their ships glimmered like dark stars against the void. Missiles and weapons glowed ominously. Soldiers tensed, ready to strike. Lyra stood beside Kaeldar, her heart racing. She felt small in the face of so much power, yet she knew she had the strength to act. "Open the comms," she instructed. A holographic figure appeared, the leader of the rival faction. Their scales were dark, their eyes narrow and calculating. Lyra's voice rang clear. "We know why you are here. You seek to take me. But harming me will bring nothing but loss to you. Listen instead." She presented her plan: trade routes, resource exchanges, and the logic of peace. She explained her own value not as a tool, but as a bridge, a symbol of cooperation between humans and dragons. She spoke with calm authority, appealing to reason rather than fear. Kaeldar watched her closely. His gaze was steady and supportive, giving her courage to continue. The rival leader hesitated, eyes flicking between Lyra and Kaeldar. None of the humans they had ever known had spoken with such clarity, such boldness, such intelligence. Minutes felt like hours. Then, slowly, the rival leader lowered their weapons. A nod passed between the two leaders. Lyra exhaled, relief washing over her. She had done it. She had prevented a war not through force but through thought and courage. Kaeldar stepped forward, his massive form towering beside her. "You have done what many could not," he said. "You have saved lives through wisdom and heart. That is a gift far rarer than strength or fire." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time she truly understood that she mattered, not because of her appearance, not because of her past, but because of who she was. The Dragon Lord, the most powerful being she had ever met, had trusted her. The galaxy had listened to her. That night, as the fortress settled back into calm, Kaeldar spoke to her quietly. "You are not just a human sent as punishment. You are a force for change. Never forget that." Lyra nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. She had faced fear, danger, and doubt, and she had triumphed. She was no longer just a girl labeled ugly and unwanted. She was a bridge, a protector, and perhaps, in some small way, a hero. And as she looked at Kaeldar standing beside her in the quiet glow of the stars, she realized that she had found something even greater than safety. She had found purpose. The stars glittered like scattered diamonds above the fortress as Lyra walked alongside Kaeldar. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of light and shadow. She had never imagined that her life could lead to this moment, far from Earth, far from her family, yet somehow exactly where she belonged. The threat from the rival faction had passed, thanks to her courage and careful thinking. The dragons and humans aboard the fortress looked at her differently now. She was no longer the ugly girl, sent as a punishment. She was respected, valued, and trusted. Her mind had saved lives, her heart had prevented war, and her presence had changed the course of many worlds. Kaeldar turned to her, his golden eyes glowing in the soft starlight. "You have grown stronger than you know," he said. "Not in body, not in fire, but in spirit. That is why you are here. That is why I value you." Lyra looked down, feeling a warmth in her chest she had never felt before. She had always believed that her worth depended on what others could see, her face, her stature, her strength. But Kaeldar had shown her that value could be found in courage, intelligence, and heart. For the first time she understood that she mattered simply for being herself. Days passed and Lyra continued to learn and contribute. She helped plan trade routes, advised on peaceful diplomacy, and offered insights into human culture that even Kaeldar's council found surprising. She became a bridge between two civilizations, a living proof that humanity was more than what others thought. The Dragon Lord watched her quietly, but his gaze lingered longer than before. Soldiers whispered among themselves, noticing the subtle changes in his behavior. Lyra did not fully understand it yet, but she felt a connection growing between them, not one of fear or authority but something deeper, something personal. One evening, Kaeldar called her to the highest tower of the fortress. The view was breathtaking. Stars, planets, and distant suns stretched as far as the eye could see. Lyra felt small in the vastness, yet safe as if the universe itself were embracing her. "You have shown courage, wisdom, and heart," Kaeldar said. "I have lived for centuries and I have seen many creatures of strength, beauty, and power. But few have touched me the way you have. You are unlike anyone I have ever known." Lyra's hands trembled slightly. She had never heard words like these before. Humans on Earth had always judged her harshly, called her ugly, weak, or useless. And yet here, in the presence of the most powerful being in the galaxy, she was being seen, truly seen, for who she was. "Kaeldar," she whispered, unsure what to say. He stepped closer, his massive presence comforting rather than threatening. "You are not a punishment," he said. "You are a gift. And I choose to honor you, protect you, and stand beside you. Not because you were sent here, not because you are human, but because of who you are inside." Lyra felt tears prick at her eyes. She had spent so long believing she had no worth, so long hiding from the world that had rejected her. And now she realized that she had been given something no one could ever take away: love, respect, and trust from someone she could never have imagined would care. The soldiers and council members watched quietly, witnessing the moment. They understood that this was more than a personal bond, it was a symbol of what humanity could be. A being they had feared, Kaeldar, had recognized the strength and value of a human girl. The story would be remembered across the stars, that sometimes what one world throws away, another sees as priceless. Lyra looked at him, her heart full. I never expected this," she admitted. Kaeldar's eyes softened. "Expectations are often the chains that hold us back. You have freed yourself from them. You have shown what is truly possible. And for that I honor you." From that day on, Lyra stood beside Kaeldar not as a punishment, not as a token, but as an equal. She walked through the fortress with confidence, her voice respected, her thoughts valued, her presence cherished. The galaxy had learned that humanity was more than strength or beauty, it was heart, courage, and wisdom, even in the most unlikely forms. And as she gazed at the stars, Lyra realized that she had not only found her purpose but had also found someone who loved her like no other. The girl who had once been called ugly, unwanted, and weak was now a beacon of hope, a bridge between worlds, and a symbol that true value comes from within. Kaeldar stood beside her, silent but steady, a protector and a friend, a force as constant as the stars. Together they looked out over the galaxy they would guide, not with fear, not with power alone, but with understanding, compassion, and heart. Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of the past fall away. She had been sent as a punishment, but she had become something far greater. Loved, respected, and seen for who she truly was, she finally understood the truth of the universe. Sometimes the smallest and most overlooked among us can change everything. And in that vast, endless galaxy, a human girl and a dragon lord stood together, proving that love, courage, and wisdom could shine brighter than any star.